Good evening, class. It's nice to be with you guys again. I have been spending a lot of time just learning more and more about our church. I know throughout the classes that we've all experienced together, we have done extensive research into our churches, and that has played a large part in the kind of knowledge that I walked into this week with. I've done a lot of studying this week too, and just soaking in the words that Dr. Kathy Morey talked about in our lecture, and just being a much more reflective way of viewing our community around our church. The first thing is that during the lecture it talked about if you were a niche church or a parish church, and I definitely think that Blakemore, the church that I call my home church, is a parish church. We're very lectionary based. We preach from the lectionary every week. We actually have a children's curriculum that is lectionary based too. That way everybody is learning based on the lectionary anywhere you are in the church. And we're just very liturgical, which is a very strange thing given the fact that we are a church that is full of a lot of young people. You just don't find that very often. I wouldn't think that you would call Blakemore a niche church. And maybe you could. I think that there's a bit of both definitions in a church. We definitely attract people who are on their final leg in a church or in a church universal, and they find Blakemore as a last resort where they either find their community at Blakemore or they usually end up leaving the church, is what I found through interviews with people who've attended the church in the past and people who are still currently in the church. There was a lot of information that I gathered about our community this week. Some interesting fun facts. Our community has a mailman that walks. It's actually a mail woman that walks and does the mail route that way. So it is not a driving around putting mail in mailboxes. And so that was a very interesting thing for me to find out. Some more things about our wider community. We are located very close to downtown. We're about 2-minute walk from Vanderbilt's campus, which is where we originally were located, and has played a big part in how and what has shaped our church, being located so close to the college community. That being said, it's a greater Nashville area fun facts, or not really fun facts, but facts. 8 out of 10 students in our area of the church, around our church, receive free lunch during the school years, and most of them speak either English or Spanish, but primarily English in schools, and that has played a part in how we have done some outreaches in the recent past. And so for Easter we collected money to donate to a charity that actually provides food for those students over the weekend that usually get free lunches during the school year. Talking about we being in a college town, the main demographic in which you will see around Blakemore is a lot of young adults. That is because it's just a very transient community. So you will find a lot of people roaming the streets from August until November, and then they'll go home for December, and then they'll be back from January to May. And so we are at a very big lull. So actually spending time in the community this week is a very unfair assessment of our community. It is a very slow time for our congregation. We have people who are teachers that attend our church, and since they're not teaching, they have used this time to go on vacation, and a lot of people who are students that attend our churches are at home or doing various things during the summer, which creates a more turbulent kind of thing inside the church, but also around our community. We have a lot less time in traffic, a lot less time at coffee shops, just waiting in line, because there's just significantly less people in our community at this point. But as a general rule, when I was looking up statistics on the Nazarene demographics page, our community is mainly put together of young adults, which isn't surprising once I know that I graduated from Tribeca with my undergrad over a year ago, and I've stayed in Nashville, and a lot of people do that. So we're finding that. And we're also finding this transition where there's not a lot of families. There's a lot of young adults, but not a lot of people having children in our community. And so that makes for a very unique set of circumstances as well. The young adults, as in the college age students, about 20s and 30s is what the age ranges was giving around the church. They're also qualified within probably the upper to middle class. Nashville has a very dynamic financial difference in the ways that you will see people who are in low-income housing and are in housing developments versus a lot of people who spend a lot of money to live downtown and have the money to do such a thing. And so you see the very big dynamic change of that. But the statistics say that it is majority upper middle class. As you spend time in our community, you will walk around and you'll see a lot of the original architecture from when houses were first built in the 1930s and 40s, right after Vanderbilt was being built and houses being built around it. That being said, because it's so close to this downtown area in Vanderbilt, houses are being sold for a lot of money if they're being sold. And a lot of the houses that are being sold are being torn down and new architecture is being put up. And if you walk around our community, around the church, you'll notice a lot of houses for sale and a lot of those houses being renovated for new types of architecture. A lot of other people, if you spend some time around the church, you'll notice is a very big area for walking your dogs or yourself, or going and doing exercises in the mornings or in the evenings. You'll find a lot of people doing that, and so it is a community in which they go out and they participate. I think the difficulty in all of this is that I know all of this. I have spent time in this community. I understand the parks that are near our church. I understand the schools that are near our church. But our church is not currently engaging in the community around us. This has been the story from the very start. So Blakemore started in a little tiny church that is where the Vanderbilt track currently is located, and we were bought out by Vanderbilt and we moved to our current location. And in moving to our current location, a lot of the families that once attended that Blakemore church also got bought out by Vanderbilt, and they had moved out to the subdivisions in the outskirts of Nashville, and they drove in to the church. And so from the very existence, 1942, when we are beginning to see the first signs of Blakemore in this community, they have been traveling into this church. And very strangely, we don't see many people at the church. The longest person who's been at the church is 10 years. And so it's a very transient community of people coming and going as well within the church. But all that being said, we all still travel to go to this church. So I know for me, I travel about 10 to 15 minutes to Blakemore. I actually pass 2 Nazarene churches before I get to Blakemore. And so it's a choice to travel there, and we have not seen much of community involvement in what we can do within that. The only things that we really do is, like, during Vanderbilt football season, we open our parking lot up for people to park there, but those aren't really people in our community because they wouldn't need to park there. And so it's a very big thing that we're trying to figure out what is the best thing to reach out to this college community. So I came from Tribeca, but we also have Vanderbilt students, and Belmont's not very far away. And how can we connect with these college-age students, grad school students, and get them into our community and grow with them while they're still here? And sometimes that means that it's a very temporary stay. I know that not everybody stays once they're done graduating, and sometimes you don't find a church that you like, and you go to a lot of churches, and that's okay too. but it's learning all of these things that I've learned about the community and trying to figure out how not to fix the community, but how we can better serve the community. Thanks for listening.